So I just came from the theater, I just came from the cinema. I just finished watching the movie Sound of Freedom. I couldn't tell you who acted in this movie. I don't think I'd ever recognize any of the actors in it. But this movie has been making waves on the internet. It's been all over. I remember last week, when we were shooting a short film, one of the actors told me, "You should check this movie out." And I was like, like I don't want to watch any random movie that's at the theater because, time. But I encourage you, if this movie is playing in theaters near you, you should go watch it. The subject matter is important. It's near and dear to me. It's something that touched my heart. The way they shot the movie, the way everybody in it performs. There's these two little kids, especially the little boy. You cannot teach kids how to act, how to be kids. And kudos to the cinematographer who captured the innocence of the children in this movie. There's something that I feel like you cannot perform, you cannot teach. That little boy is just a sweet human. And when you see the innocence of that child and realize what could have happened to that kid, what could have happened to that child, what the story implies happened to that child, it's heartbreaking. And coming from where I come from, the experiences that I've experienced, the things that I've seen, the things that I've heard, it's knowing that his reality, this is not just a story. This is something that could have happened. This is something that is happening. It's not could have. This is something that happens, and that happens to a lot of kids. In this, call it review, breakdown, or whatever, I'm just gonna touch on what I saw, what I felt, and why I think this movie is important. One of the main things that I like when it comes to movies is always how the opening image relates to the closing image. We open with the camera dolling in on this little girl singing, playing the drum. She's singing a song that I'm assuming is in Spanish. I'm not a Spanish speaker, but I have a lot of Spanish friends, and she's singing this song, and we dolly in on her. And this woman comes in and is like, "Hey, I heard you sing at the market, and I'll help you this." And then we are set off on a journey. The first 5 minutes sets up the movie and what the movie is about. It's about this little kid that wants to be a singer, and her father takes her to the thing to sing, and it sets up the trafficking. So the first 5 minutes, we already know what this movie is about. It's about reconnecting this father with his children, right? Because that's sort of like the theme, but it has deeper meaning than that. And we set off on the journey. And the one thing that I like is how the movie is shot, in how we already connect with these little kids and how we don't want anything bad to happen to them. But we know what we are watching. And we go through this journey of how these people, I think it's called home security or whatever in the States, they track down pedophiles and they catch pedophiles, and you sort of hope that they save these kids, but you also understand that they might not, right? And we go through this journey. We're introduced to the main character who works for this as an agent, and he catches one of these guys, and then he forces that, or he tricks that guy into finding these kids, because it's like, we catch pedophiles, but we never help the kids. We're doing a lot by catching these people. So if you catch 200 pedophiles, what does that mean for the kids? Because the kids are never in the States, right? Like, they have no jurisdiction outside of the States. What can they do? And then you sort of understand, but you also realize that us as people, how much are we doing? How much conversation do we have around human trafficking? How much do we talk about it? When was the last time you spoke about it? Unless it happens to someone you know, do you really speak about it? How many cases of missing people do we see, stories that we hear, and we turn a blind eye? you know and I remember when I was a child, when I was growing up, we would constantly be told not to go anywhere with strangers, to be weary, to always walk in groups, to always be careful. At a certain time, you had to go home. So this was a threat that I grew up in. This was a prevalent threat that I experienced. It never happened to me, but I remember one time I had a friend disappear, and thank God they found him, but he was hiding under drains and stuff like that, and we never spoke about it. But those things were real. And fast forward to this movie, it captures it and touches on the innocence of this child and of this man wanting to save his kids. It becomes the story of this man wanting to save his kids. And, whilst I was watching it, I was thinking to myself, this is just the story of one little girl that he's trying to save. Thank God he saves a boy, he finds a boy, but it becomes about the little girl that he's trying to save. And you're thinking, how many of these little girls exist? How many are out there? I'm someone who doesn't have a kid, but I'm someone who has nephews and nieces and knows the innocence of children, and how twisted and devious this world we live in is. I was at Oppenheimer, I was at Barbie, the studios were full. This one, it wasn't. And I understand maybe because it hasn't been marketed or advertised as such, it's not a spectacle. But I realized the power of cinema was watching this movie. It's how much a message can be driven forward, because in the first half, the entire movie is just about saving the kids and making a plan and the little things that people do. And then it turns a serious side where you have rebels involved. And, we often hear about these rebels taking over lands, and we don't really picture it, right? Because we live in these big buildings, we make YouTube videos, we make podcasts, we live these great lives that we don't really take time to be like, damn, man, what could be happening? I remember in the last 10 years, I was in college when the Boko Haram thing happened, and these girls were taken from a school and were essentially kidnapped and taken into the rebel lands. And people made posters, bring back our girls, but I don't think those girls ever came back. And this movie, it brought those flashbacks to me. And this was happening, it's based in Colombia. So you're thinking, this is happening in Colombia, that happened in Nigeria. And when you look globally, how many kids get caught up into these situations and what is done for them? I think we have a big issue and we have a big responsibility in terms of the stories we tell, the stories we make spectacles of. I get it, for studios, it's about money and it's not about touching on these issues, because a lot of times the guilty parties are within, the people who have money engage in these nefarious activities. But we, the people, have a responsibility. We make the decision to either go watch. I wish parents who take their kids to watch Barbie would also take their kids to watch The Sound of Freedom, so that their kids understand the freedom they have in being able to watch Barbie, and how it's not important whether you have a Barbie doll. Some kids don't have that freedom or that privilege to be able to watch a Barbie, and not to say anything against $1 billion movie. I think that for the little bubble that people in Western society live in, there's a reality that a lot of people in third world countries have to survive, and there are kids within our borders in the first world who also get trafficked. And this movie is an important movie. It's a movie about the little kids. And it's a movie that I feel like for me is a reminder of why I make films, why I sit in front of camera, why it's important, what power we hold. The storyteller holds a lot of power. I almost gave up on this thing, man. I didn't want to make movies because it costs so much, it takes so much from you. But I realize the power that we have in storytelling. So I'd encourage you to go watch this movie in theaters, because I think there's something about watching a movie in the big screen without distraction from your phone, and you just engage. It's you allow the storytellers to speak to you in a way that, once this is on Netflix or wherever, you have distractions. But also, like, when it's available, I think it should be watched by a lot of people, because this movie is important. And I don't know, at the end of the movie, the main actor comes back and he's like, they tried so hard. The movie should have been out 5 years ago, but it took them a long time to put it out because of a lot of things that are put in place. We all know the things that happen with these people who have money. I don't know why they do these evil deeds, but it is what it is. From a movie breakdown perspective, the cinematography of the movie, it always captures half of the face in darkness and half of it in light. And I think that was a decision. It's shot beautifully. I think they made a conscious decision of how they took the picture, like how the quality of the picture is. A lot of the shots, the single shots, the white shots, everything was beautiful. The composition is beautiful. The direction, the performances, man, the little kids' performances. I'm glad that it tells a real life story. And as I said, the opening scene, comes around to the final scene, because somehow, in the opening scene, the little girl is playing her drum and she's singing. And when it comes to the end, she's doing the same thing. And it sort of reminds you that this is a normal day in life for these kids, for these people in these worlds that we come from, coming from third worlds. In reality, man, like, we need to wake up and we need to pay attention. We have a responsibility to protect kids. My final message, which is a final message shared by the film, is God's children are not for sale, man. And I'd like to say, even if you don't believe in God, no child should be for sale.